Good morning. There's so much great information as far as the background of Acts. When we get the background of Acts, then it's much more understandable as we read through the book. Luke records 4 sermons by Peter, beginning with the day of Pentecost. He preached a sermon on Solomon's porch in the temple. He preached to the household of Cornelius in Caesarea, and he preached before the apostles and elders at the Jerusalem Council. So those are Luke's mention of the 4 sermons of Peter. Records 6 sermons of Paul in the synagogue at Antioch of Pisidia, to the philosophers on Mars Hill, to the Ephesian elders in Miletus, to the hostile Jerusalem crowd, before Felix, the Roman governor, and before Herod Agrippa II. One sermon of Stephen is recorded, which gives a summary of the entire Old Testament. One sermon of James at the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15 is recorded. Acts highlights the Spirit's filling, and it's mentioned at least 14 times, and it is regularly accompanied by a bold witness. So if you think being filled with the Spirit means you do crazy stuff, it means you start witnessing and start speaking of your faith. Throughout his earthly ministry, Jesus yielded to the leadership of the Holy Spirit. He spent considerable time in prayer. His followers follow that same practice in the book of Acts. Acts also features a lot of Jewish hostility, mentioned at least 18 times. They especially went after Paul, and because he was in their synagogues presenting the gospel, and they rejected the message repeatedly. Acts documents extensive church expansion, beginning in, you see at the end of Acts where we're now getting to the world. There's, common threads of firsts throughout the book of Acts. And Luke records the first sermon. He records the first conversion. He records the first persecution, the first divine judgment with Ananias and Sapphira, first selection of deacons, first Christian martyr, of course that being Stephen. He records the first term of the word Christian at Antioch. Luke records the missionary journeys called by Paul and Barnabas and Mark and Silas. And Luke is the first gospel preached in Europe. So the message of Christ was first preached in Europe. And that's what Luke is recording. And this, of course, occurred at Philippi. And there were 2 major events in Philippi. Beautiful city to visit.